Well, Corey, thank you so much for being here.
Of course, my pleasure. I'm glad to be asked.
I first was introduced to you, heard you speak at Montana Festival.
That's right. I remember meeting you afterwards.
Yeah, because I made it a point to make sure I could at least come
You
shake your
did.
hand and
It
say
was
hello.
very nice of you. I appreciated that.
I really appreciate and enjoyed the sort of the way you run the armory and your perspective behind it. And
Good.
I really try to embody something very similar with Mountain Mule Transportation because we're a luxury transportation company, but it's
Yeah.
also Montana.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm always trying to honor both those things because I know who the clients typically are, but I also know the culture of Montana.
That's right. That's
And
exactly right.
Can you speak to how you guys have done that with the armory and how you use that to?
Yeah, I mean, no, first of all, I totally agree. I mean, for all of us that live here in Montana, I mean, we have a lot of pride, like everyone does, in who we are and where we're from. And I think that, when we set to the task of building the armory, the whole proposition there was not to construct a hotel. And when we started down that path, there really wasn't a hotel downtown. And so the idea was that we were going to build an experience. We had an obligation in our community, especially downtown in Bozeman, because it's got such a strong character, and it really represents so much of what's great about town. And so I felt a great obligation to make sure that what we added to our downtown was reflective. It's not there to replace anything that's there, because what's there is great. It's there to be a really good neighbor to the rest of the scene. So as we went down the path and decided that we were going to do this, we very intentionally needed to build an experience that was an authentic reflection of Bozeman. And in order to do that, we really pressed ourselves to understand and appreciate who we are as a community, and develop a hotel experience, sure, but a larger experience for the community itself. So, got to say that as I exercised this thesis and strolled around downtown trying to figure out where we were going to do this, so much of what we ended up with was driven by the fact that we were fortunate enough to run into the armory. And I literally was scouring downtown, because downtown is the authentic heart of Bozeman. And so I was really committed that if I was going to do anything, it was going to be in the downtown corridor. And kind of a classic move for a Northern Rockies kid is that sometimes it needs to literally show up right in front of your eyes before you see it. I had walked past the armory. My office is downtown with Off the Beaten Path. And I'd walked past that many times. It's all shuttered up, nothing going on. And I finally realized, wait a second, what is this place? And so, at the time it was bank owned, and I talked to the right people to get me in there. And I suited up in 2012 with rubber boots and rubber gloves and a respirator before, masks were cool, and went into this building that had been shuttered up for several years at that point. And what was amazing is that as I made my way through this very dark place, kind of a little scary, a little good, like perfect for a Halloween haunted house. What I realized is that even though there was some water encroachment and some of the drop ceilings were caving in and so on, the bones of that particular building were fantastic. This was an armory in every sense of the word. And as I started to dig in and understand what the history of the armory was, it all became clear. So my thesis of developing something that was reflective of town was anchored in this beautiful place that had such great history in town. So many people had been in the armory when it was active, and it actually held a lot of memories for a lot of folks in town. So when we set to the task of building it, it was from that foundational perspective that we exercised into that idea. And ultimately, the programming, the way that we designed it, and of course, the way that we wanted it to run, needed to further that effort, which continued to grow. And I mentioned one time when I was speaking to Rotary that, most of the time stories are written. And in our case, our story was found. We found the Armory, and then we dug into its history, and we took our intent and married it up against that history and found this really wonderful story that compelled us to this place that was right in line with what we wanted to achieve, such that people who visited and stayed at the Armory would actually end up experiencing Bozeman, and both within the four walls of the Armory, but also our programming really promotes people to take a stroll and to get downtown and to patronize and experience some of those really cool merchant storefronts and establishments. And so that really is how it all came to be.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
And to it specifically, the speakeasy and the proximity to downtown. And what was the room that you were speaking in when I saw you at Montana Festival?
So that is actually the Armory Music Hall. Again, this was the gymnasium or the drill floor when the 163rd occupied the space for 70 years. And rather than just building a banquet hall, which would be very typical for a hotel, we actually were committed that part of defining the characteristics of Bozeman and reflecting the authentic sort of sense of place was to have a real professional grade ability to host live events, to host live music. And so the Armory Music Hall sprouted. And the idea there was that we were going to take what was a gymnasium and we were going to build effectively a box within the box. And that is an acoustically attenuated room that would allow for amplified sound while not bothering everyone that's above it and beside it, and allow us to be able to present and promote really cool live music experiences. And so so that particular element was yet another story within the story, because the drill floor itself was one of those areas that most people had experience with. Had this beautiful walnut floor that unfortunately we couldn't save. It had been encroached by water and it was all rippled up. We had to get it out. But we could have just built out rooms. When you buy the book on how to build a perfect hotel, it tells you that every cubic inch that you can dedicate to rooms, you do it because that's your most profitable element of a hotel. And yet our commitment to the community, it was a no-brainer. We needed to keep that room and in fact create a space that would promote opportunities for the community to come in and enjoy it.
Hi folks, quick note from me. If you don't already know, the goal of Mountain Mule Media is to build real connection between Montana's businesses and the people they serve. If this episode or any other has given you something worth thinking about, smiling at, or passing along, I've got a small ask. Share it with a friend, text it to someone, post it in your story. That one simple action helps these businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this show keep going. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. Now back to the show. A while back, I had Brian Springer on from the Bozeman Airport.
Yeah,
and
great guy.
I think of the Bozeman Airport and the way they've, kind of to what I was asking you, the way they've really maintained the Montana culture.
Yeah.
And I think to what you're saying, that you keep that room, versus, that could be 10, 15 more rooms. That's right. That's more profit.
That's right.
That makes sense. But it's something I really intentionally work hard to do with my company, and just as someone in Montana, is to, honor and respect that, and also run a business. So you got to balance those two all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, you hit it on the head. The book says you need to go one way, but your commitment to community compels you in a different way. We broke a lot of those rules when we did the adaptive reuse of the Armory into the Armory Hotel. And we believed then, and it's been affirmed in our operation over the last just over 5 years, that was in fact the right move, because it is the right kind of place that does have this very clear integration with the community and this wonderful intent to be a good steward.
And this is just my opinion. I don't, as you'd imagine, as a local, don't stay in hotels downtown all the
Yeah,
time.
right. No, that's one of our big problems
Yeah.
is that local people
Yeah.
don't think to go to a hotel, right?
But my opinion is it's the nicest luxury option downtown, and there's some very, very nice other options. It's nothing
Sure.
against them, but I just think, and it's a one of one in a lot of senses.
That's right.
Being that, taking that title that I just gave you, which could be debated.
Yeah.
I don't know if many people would debate it anyway.
Yeah, no. I certainly would be up for the argument.
How as maintaining that, that reputation of that luxury hotel and balancing, Montana's sort of cowboy West culture?
That's a great question. It really is a great question, because it is, in the end, it's one of the more challenging elements. As a part of us delivering an authentic reflection of place, we really felt that Bozeman had in its character, when you describe its character in generalities, you would touch upon that notion that we've got a lot of pride in what we do, and that we are unafraid of being a little elevated. And that's not a response to the people who use Bozeman as a gateway to Yellowstone in their travels. It's not a response to the people who use Bozeman to just go to a resort. It's actually Bozeman. We elevate. Back in the day, and we can all appreciate this, that, food options in Bozeman tended to be a little elevated from some of the other options you can get around the state. And using that as just one example, we really felt confident that we could build a hotel to a standard. And this is all the way down to the details of acoustical attenuation. How quiet is your room? And that's one of the things we're quite proud of. But we built it to a specification that was a clear and full step above what existed in Bozeman, and really in any town in Montana. Like, we always called it 4+ star. It's not 5-star.
Mm-hmm.
We are not a luxury hotel, although we've fit and finished the place in many ways to be at that level. We intentionally are 4+ star, so that we could acknowledge the fact that it's an elevated experience, but it's approachable. And that was really critical, because we like to think that another element of Bozeman's character is just that it's approachable, that it's unique, and it delivers something unique, but it's approachable. It's never pretentious. And that's, in fact, what we're trying to achieve there.
Are you familiar with the book Unreasonable Hospitality?
Quite.
Okay.
I know Will Guidara. I had the great pleasure of meeting Will before he was Will Guidara.
That's
it was
very cool.
A very cool experience for me about 15 years ago, with some friends that are in the culinary world, and worked with Will.
So I hadn't read the book prior to hearing you speak.
Yeah.
But I have read it since. And
great.
I love his perspective of that approachable comes up a lot, but it's, you want it to be first class.
That's right.
And approachable.
That's right. And don't think for a second that, these ideas are unique. A lot of it comes from such respect that I have for people like Will Guidara and people around here locally who have a choice and are always really impressive in the way that they deliver. I think of some of the restaurateurs in town that have been in town forever, and they just do a great job, whether they're providing a truly elevated meal culinary experience, or they've got a shop that does burgers. They do a really good job. And that's something that, if you look deeply into the character of town, there's a lot of instances like that. And so for us, we don't like to think of it as exceptional, and we certainly don't think of it as luxury. That doesn't quite capture it. It's more of this intent to be unafraid of being unique and being elevated in our approach to what would otherwise be considered a little normal hotel experience, that kind of thing. And that's why with the adaptive reuse, we were compelled to not just build a hotel. I mean, we have 3 independent food and beverage outlets. We operate every single one of those. We do not franchise it out or lease it out to someone else. We operate those, but they have their own individual character and nature. In addition to the Army Music Hall, which again is our greatest opportunity to be connected to the community in big moments where a lot of people can walk through those doors, and we can house nearly 1,000 people in the hall. And so when we have these events that we can bring people in, you're never going to feel so perfectly on the bullseye of our intent than a night when we've got that hall lit up with a great event that's brought in a lot of people. At the same time, you've got every outlet just churning, and then you have, of course, people in those rooms that are staying overnight.
Yeah, that I can speak to the experience when I heard you speak, and Patton does a great job with Montana Festival. But the feeling in the air, all the different business owners, the different speakers, and being in the armory, it spoke to me. Personally, my business in Montana.
I love hearing that.
Very cool.
I love hearing that. I had a moment myself during that. I think that Patton and his whole team, they do such a fantastic job with that. I really am hopeful and supportive of Montana Festival. What was talked about that particular day, and I was honored to be able to just address as a welcome moment at the start. Where that went to was just perfect. It was hand in glove to what I believe personally to be the right direction for our town and for the state of Montana, and it was an exciting day for sure.
Yeah, I agree. That was my first year at Montana Festival, and I was just very impressed with the whole thing. And
they've only been around 2 years, and I'm excited to see them grow.
Yeah, likewise. It's funny, when I started my company, I was always in the middle of that seesaw of, luxury, high-quality transportation in Montana. Originally, when I started it was with a full-size Ford Lariat pickup truck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? This is a very luxurious, expensive truck. More expensive.
Yeah.
And I was trying to, man, how could we hold that Montana culture?
Yeah.
I have since shifted to all SUVs. That's what the market demands.
Practicality, right?
There's a balance between what you would want it to be and what the market wants. But I do feel that we're in a really sweet spot now where we have our systems really down, but it's, the way we show up as drivers in a company as Montanans, the way we treat people, the way we felt welcomed when we first came to this state or when we grew up here. I have a mix of both of people on my team. And anyway, it just going back to what you guys are doing.
And how great is that?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, kudos to you, because, what I've done is a direct parallel to what you've done. And you are intent to deliver an exceptional experience, but you also have the same measure of intent for it to be authentic, and let that be sort of the core of what sets it apart.
Yeah.
And that's beautiful. That's what we all sort of naturally gravitate to. And it shows. We've got a lot of instances like that in this valley.
It's so fun, and it correlates perfectly with the podcast. The way I say it is, I'm a storyteller.
Yeah.
And I'm telling Montana's story to everyone that comes here.
Yeah.
I'm telling every guest story that comes on the show to Montana. Yep. And I tell it to our team and our drivers, like, hey, we're storytellers. We're telling people, a story about Montana and about who we are. And I think I love looking at the position not as a luxury transportation company, but as we're glorified storytellers.
Absolutely. Boy, I could not agree more. And I think it is the purest privilege that we get to do what we do. And in my business, my day job, CEO of Off the Beaten Path, a longtime local adventure travel company, that's what we are. And we get to partner with people when they travel, when they take time out of their busy lives and carve out time for just them and their family, whoever that is, traveling troupe, they could be with friends, but that's sacred moments. And so our intent at Off the Beaten Path is to do just that, to tell the story of a place, the authentic, localized story. And the best way to do that is to connect people who are traveling to a place to people who are from that place.
Yeah.
And as long as those people have that mentality of, hey, I'm very proud of my home place. I love it dearly. And I love to share that with engaging, curious travelers. And that just that'll give us as a community this wonderful distinction as we continue to grow, which I'm sure we will.
Yeah. And there's, as you've spoken a few times, the stories that people have to tell and the things people are doing around here is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Heck, we got to make it work. Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's always been a little bit like that, starting with the days of the settlement of the West. You had an idea and an intent. And even if you didn't have the existing knowledge and experience, you had the intention, and you needed to make it work. And boy, that's carried on to this very day. We all have to make it work. We all have our own personal objectives in life. But if you can actually blend actual purpose into what you do more than you sleep each week, you're in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And I think we're both pretty lucky on that front.
Yeah. And I feel so fortunate and blessed that I'm like really just hitting that really right now.
Yeah,
like,
it's great.
It's
a good feeling.
It's very, very
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. I agree with you.
To that off the beaten path, what's the story and how
off the beaten path? Well, off the beaten path is the reason why the Armory exists. Off the beaten path is entering its 40th year. It started in 1986.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. So 2026 is the 40th year that Off the Beaten Path has existed in the space. It was founded in Bozeman. Husband and wife, Bill and Pam Bryan, who are still residents here in town. Wonderful, wonderful human beings. And I was fortunate enough to run into them 24 years ago. And in my evolution, I was actually searching for my next professional step. And a particular element of what I wanted from that next step was to make sure that whatever I did had all of the sort of traditional fundamentals, the metrics that are traditionally measured when you think of success professionally. But importantly for me, it also had to have purpose. And that's when I ran into Bill Bryan and Pam Bryan, and I ran into Off the Beaten Path. So it's an adventure travel company, and people ask, so what's that? Well, it's not a travel agency. It's a company that curates and tailors travel experiences. And we do that in a broad expanse that touches a lot of places around the globe. But home sweet home is the American West, and in particular, the Northern Rockies. And that's where the company was founded. And we managed people in their travels when they would travel here to the Greater Yellowstone. From there, at the very start of the business, it was the Northern Rockies, and Alaska, and a little bit of the desert Southwest. And since then, we've kind of moved on to encompass, the entirety of the Americas, and then pushed our way out into the continent of Africa and Europe. And then of course, Oceania. So we do quite a lot of stuff in Australia and New Zealand and some of the Pacific Islands. And so it's fascinating because everything that we did at the very beginning, where we delivered a different style of travel, where people would be able to immerse and connect at a localized level, that was done in the American West. That's what we do everywhere now. And we actually don't go everywhere in the world because we need to understand it. Prerequisite to delivering off the beaten path travel is to really understand a place and to have the human resources in those places to get our travelers connected. And that's what we do. And it's from that idea that the notion that we could do something like the Armory was sprouted. We wanted to deliver something to Bozeman, in the case of the Armory, that actually accentuated the travel experience for people who visited Montana and Bozeman in particular, such that if you stayed there and measured your experience afterwards, you would feel that you had really connected to the community and understood Bozeman and its personality and the unique nature of it. And so it was from that lens that this thesis sprouted. And And then we exercised it in Bozeman because, frankly, it was right here. It was in our backyard. I could stay close to the project. It wasn't intended to be as big a project as it was at the beginning, but it just naturally gravitated to a different form. And that's why it's the tallest building downtown. And it has a lot of different elements that, again, kind of broke the rules of the book, but we did that intentionally because we wanted Bozeman folks to have a place to go to, even if their head doesn't drive them to a hotel when they're thinking of it naturally. Intuitively, we don't think to do that. But if we let these food and beverage outlets, the tune-up, the basement bar, Fielding's, the sort of proper restaurant on the first level, and then, of course, the Sky Shed up top, to just give everyone, locals and visitors alike, this gorgeous view of our magnificent valley. These were all of the reasons why we did what we did. It was really kind of took a page out of the Off the Beaten Path book.
Hey folks, Tim here with Mountain Mule. I've got a quick announcement I wanted to tie in here. I'm excited this year, 2026, this spring, summer. We are officially going to start doing park tours through Yellowstone Park. These will be day tours starting in Bozeman, drop-offs ending back in Bozeman. And we can probably still customize that outside of the Bozeman area, meaning pickups in Big Sky, pickups in West Yellowstone, or any of the surrounding areas. We're building out the program now, so there'll be lots of updates coming through, but please keep us in mind if you've used us for transportation in the past. We're excited to be able to expand what we're doing and have a busier summer for the teams. Look forward to seeing you out there. So that stemmed from the book and went into.
Yeah, that's really why it all came to be, is that I was at Off the Beaten Path, and what I was trying to do, I have some background in doing some development, really on a smaller scale, but had experience with it. And so I was thinking, Off the Beaten Path is very much a service organization. We work with people, design and build these experiences, and then manage their time while they're out and about traveling. But we didn't have any sort of brick and mortar in the business. And so this was the idea. How do you take that same mission orientation at Off the Beaten Path and apply it to a lodging experience? And in the case of Bozeman, it needed to be more than lodging. It needed to also have these food and beverage outlets, and needed to have a certain character so that we could appreciate the really elevated commitment we have to the culinary arts and to food experiences, live music, as well as the great outdoors and our history. Those were the pillars, as we called them. We had 4 pillars that really drove us. Like, how can we reflect Bozeman's commitment to the great outdoors? How can we reflect Bozeman's commitment to its heritage, to its history and culture? And how can we reflect this elevated food commitment as well as live music? Those were our 4 pillars when we set to the task.
It makes me excited to hear all this, because I know this to an extent from when I heard you speak, but I'm hearing more. And from our business, we have a lot of clients that come out here and go up to Big Sky.
Yeah, right.
And for 2 reasons, I tell them, hey, a lot of the things you said, if you have a chance, maybe stay a night in Bozeman.
Yeah.
Big Sky's awesome. The skiing.
Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Keep doing it. We love it.
And it's like, it's great. It's not to take anything away from Big Sky, but yeah, the food scene, the culture, the shops. The other reason is when they fly out on like the 5:30 Southwest flight and they get picked up in Big Sky at 2 a.m.
Right.
It's safer for them, for our drivers, for everyone. So, if you stay somewhere downtown for a night,
hey, we love it.
You're 20 minutes, but I think that just speaks to it even more. It's you can make such a unique vacation to go ski if you love Big Sky.
Yeah.
But then come do a night or 2 in Bozeman, and
absolutely.
Maybe go check out Bridger, maybe don't. Some people get mad at me for saying that.
Yeah, right. No, it's great. It's great. Hey, Big Sky's a really amazing place. Yeah. But if you can bookend your experience at Big Sky with some time in Bozeman, it's going to add a very material, a very measurable and positive element to your overall experience. So for those people that are travelers, that's a great, you're doing good work there, because we all love it when they can come in town and connect with us.
It's a bummer because you pick up we pick up clients at the airport, and then you don't even go through Bozeman.
That's
So you
right.
totally miss
That's
it.
right. That's right.
And the school, the Bobcats,
Totally.
everything that's there. There's a lot there.
Yeah, no doubt. And you don't touch it more perfectly, even though there's really fantastic places sort of emerging around town. But when you're downtown, you get that feel for the historical element of Bozeman. And then when you go into those merchants, so many of them are just such a pure reflection of our pride and community and that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's so much history on that.
Right.
Everywhere.
Totally. Not to mention some pretty classic characters that you really shouldn't miss.
Yeah. And back to the Off the Beaten Path. How many times a year do you put this magazine out? Yeah,
so that is our annual Journeys catalog. So we put that out annually, and it is a full compendium. So it's typically 120 pages or so, and what it covers is the full gamut of what Off the Beaten Path offers as it relates to travel opportunities for people. So that goes out once a year, but then we have several other pieces. We have about 6 to 8 other pieces that do go out, and they'll be more focused. So we may have one that is a compendium of everything we do in Alaska, or the lower 48, Rocky Mountains, Desert Southwest, California coast. And so we are still practitioners of the direct mail thing, and our business is driven still to this very day, 40 years later. It's driven predominantly by word of mouth. We have either people that come back to us or people that come to us at the referral of those that have traveled with us in the past. And so it's really important for us to be there. And so we'd like to put together, a really compelling and elegant, and voluminous piece of everything that we do each and every year. We're always trying to make the coffee table is really what it's all about. We want it to arrive in the mail and be something worth keeping.
I'll speak to that specifically because that came from Montana Festival.
Yeah.
And my fiance, she's like, oh, maybe like that's a nice one to keep around. And I'm like, it's still here.
I love it. That's exactly why we do it. So I love hearing that.
Because I don't like, to be honest, there's so much paper and stuff that comes in the mail, and I throw a lot of it out. But I was browsing through it too just recently, and I'm getting married in the end of July next summer.
Good for you.
I'm like,
congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we don't know if we're going to go somewhere, but I'm like looking through some of those options, and I'm like, there's some.
Hey, listen, we can pull off pretty nice honeymoons. And you just say the word, I'd love to get you in with some of our regionally focused experts.
When you say adventure travel, can you define that?
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad you touched on that because, it's, a lot of people will interpret that immediately like, oh, wait, so this is extreme. And it's not at all. Our average client age is 59. We have a part of our business that is families. So that drives that average age down because we do have families with, the kids are ages 5 to, 20 or so. But the majority of our travelers, they're more mature in age and yet they're active. So the adventure travel side of it, the adventure in adventure travel, if you will, is really speaks to the element of staying active. So we are not a company that is positioned for what I like to refer to as the fly and flop, where you fly to a place and you flop on the beach and you hang out for a week, which has its merits for sure. We know of those places. We have good knowledge regionally in all the regions that we cover, but ours is one that would have you exploring. So you're out and about, you are active daily, you're hiking and walking. That is very common on our trips. And so in the pantheon of the travel industry, there's this small slip called adventure travel. And really it's very similar to what I've just described, that you're just more active. You're not just going to a single destination, a single resort stay. You're actually moving about. So you typically find yourself staying 2 to 3 nights as you're moving around in a region, for a total of, 9 to our longest trips are 90 days. So, people do immerse. And when you go to Australia, sometimes you want to spend a month. And so we do have longer trips when they get international for sure. But domestically, our average trip is about 9 days and you're moving around through it. So someone who comes, a great example that you would know well, when you come to the greater Yellowstone, the attributes of Montana, the attributes of Bozeman, all of these beautiful, wide valleys that we've got coming off of that massive ancient caldera that is Yellowstone. It's created these beautiful valleys, and there's great places to stay within there. But you'll stay a few nights, and then you'll head into Yellowstone for a few nights. And then, of course, as you migrate through, you may want to pop out to the east and go into the Cody and the Bighorn Range, or you may want to go south into Jackson. So you get a chance to move around through a region and experience each one of those various destinations in unique ways. And of course, for us, at the very heart of that experience is not just traveling and staying in a different lodge. It's actually, what are you doing while you're there? And so we hook people in. We have a really, really extensive network of naturalist guides, curious local characters that love to spend time and lead people through the place that they love. And so that really is what sets that type of travel apart, because you're actually then joining guides that can take you in and show you elements of Yellowstone that not many people see, show you other elements that, while there might be a lot of people that see it, they don't really understand it. So if you go in there with a geothermal expert that can talk to you about what's really happening in that landscape, it adds an element of education and understanding that really sort of sets it differently. So that's how we interpret adventure travel at Off the Beaten Path.
It's very cool, and I think that's so important, because I think of just Big Sky in this area, because that's where I
Yep.
operate. There's a gentleman, Bryant, with RMC, Rocky Mountain
Yep,
Connection.
sure.
He came on recently, and the way he described Big Sky is, he said it's like 5 different islands.
Yeah, sure.
And just that, and that's one pretty like centrally located destination there. But
Yeah,
if you go up there and you don't have a car, like, how can you get from the meadow
yeah,
up to the resort?
right.
But when you think about that on a broader scale of people traveling all over the country,
Right.
the kind of stuff you're talking about becomes so important.
Yeah, it does. And how you migrate from one place to the next becomes a really important part of that. And, in our case, we have this element of our business called private custom journeys. And these are very bespoke experiences that regionally focused experts tailor a whole experience. After learning more about you and your travel interests, they then take their deep knowledge of place and put it all together. And then when you set off, a few weeks before you leave, you receive a package from Off the Beaten Path. And anchoring that package is a custom published guidebook. So we custom publish a book that we've written for them for their trip. And it covers all the things we've done for them. So all of those confirmation details related to reservations, hotel reservations or guides or other activities they'll do. But importantly, what it also does is it tells them the right direction to go. So they're self-driving, they rent a car or have a driver and they cruise, but then it also speaks to things that they could find along the way. And these are very localized things. We like to think that we're sort of priming the pump for serendipity. When you go out to a place, a lot of times you'll find when you're traveling that the thing that you did not expect at all becomes the thing that was the most meaningful part of that trip. And so we share information about, little shops that are very cool in little tiny towns that you wouldn't otherwise, frankly, stop in, except for the fact that we've said, if you happen to be going through Driggs and you've got a sweet tooth, here's the place to get a great ice cream cone. And if you're interested in art, meet this artist. They're always in the studio. They'd be happy to take you in the back and show you what they're working on. And so people get this really localized experience, even though they're passing through this area in different ways. And then of course those highways, like we love highways. We love 2-lane highways. And a lot of times when people just travel on their own, they're pulling out the phone and letting the phone take them in the most direct way from place to place. And we like to encourage that maybe there's some alternative routes that actually hold a tremendous amount of travel value to travelers. So we do that as well.
I love that, priming the pump for serendipity.
Yeah, that's
Very
right.
cool.
That's right.
Yeah, it's so big. There's so much. Like, I think of We have clients sometimes that will call and, oh, we're going here, we're going there. And I want everyone to book with us. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
But there's times when I'll say, hey, I think you might need to rent a car.
Yeah.
And it's, it correlates with why I started doing this podcast, to be able to talk to people like you
Yeah.
and different people doing stuff it reflects on me if people have a good experience here.
Absolutely.
If I say book with us and we leave you on one of those islands in Big Sky and you're stuck there all week,
That's right.
it's like, hey, why didn't I tell you that?
That's
I've been
right.
here long enough.
That's
So
right.
I could only imagine. I mean, you've got me completely sold when you're leaving the country or going anywhere to know those.
Yes.
And then it becomes about the people, those characters you talk about when you meet those people. That's what makes the vacation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. And it is correct. Those moves that you make to be an honest broker, to give people good advice. That is our greatest obligation if we've got our heads on straight, in my opinion, in the travel realm, is that, you have people that are taking a big chance. There's a lot of folks that still think that out West is, the equivalent of the Louisiana Purchase and really not much more. What else is going on out there? It's this rustic, rugged place. And so they just don't know a lot about it. And so for them to run into somebody who's giving good advice is critically important to actually having the right kind of experience in place. So those moves that you make to make recommendations and they're coming from a real good, educated place, that just builds up good karma.
Yeah.
And it all comes around.
I hope so. Cause I don't want to send people to the wrong place.
No, of course.
So I'm like, hey, I mean, that's what it was a lot. And it was the number one thing we'd get asked is, hey, we're going to come back in the summer. We're going to go to Bozeman. What should we do? And I'm like, man, I'm a local, it's like, I gotta get in the mindset of I'm traveling and like, there's nothing better to do than talk to these people and they're going to,
You're right.
They're going to tell you what to do. And
that's right. There's a connection and we're fortunate. We're fairly unique. We've always been in that space. The company was founded on this idea of really immersing at a localized level. So, we picked that in the mid '80s. The founders of the company did, and we've kind of settled into that space and gone real deep. And over the course of time, the intent for travelers has kind of migrated. It's migrated from fly and flop and resort stays and things of that sort. There's a lot of people that really intentionally want to make sure that their travel is an experience. And so fortunately, we found that there's been a migration of that intent in the demand for travel that's brought more people into our space, which is great.
I love that fly and flop.
Yeah. That's that occurred to me early on when I was at Off the Beaten Path, and it's true, and it has its virtue. I mean, believe me, there's plenty of times where we're deep into winter, and we want nothing more than to fly to someplace really warm and just see how baked we can make ourselves in the sun. Nothing wrong with that, but when it's time to get out and about, when it's time to get active and get engaged and get connected, that's when Off the Beaten Path comes into play.
Yeah, I know I could, and you probably can relate because you're always working and doing something. I could relax more, but when I do go somewhere, I do want to do as I don't want to sit on a pool.
Yeah, it is. You're active in your life daily. And what I've found is, as a consequence of working it Off the Beaten Path, that, it's not satisfying to me at the level that I want from my leisure time, to not explore. And so I stay active. My family, we get out and about and we really want to experience places. And it makes all the difference.
When you were talking just about how you got into Off the Beaten Path and the Armory, and you were speaking to, having some meaning, how is that your compass in life, like versus more just because, we all need to make a living and afford things. And
well, isn't it interesting, right? Like you kind of want it all. I think for me, there's a little bit of it, no question. That's just my wiring. It is just who I am. And, I find myself so committed to purpose. And, without it, I feel that there's sort of a hollow shell, And I am convinced, I keep telling myself this because I'm not independently wealthy,
Mhm.
that, if you did something and you were just absolutely nailing it in every way on the traditional metrics of professional success, meaning you're making money hand over fist and you never have to worry about what's in the bank or, whether or not you have to sacrifice to have something. Um, I'm myself am convinced that there is a, a massive and important part of that whole scenario that would ultimately catch up. It certainly would for me. I would feel that lack of meaning and purpose, and so, from a very young age in my professional life, I was exposed to that. I was exposed to a company that really wanted to do great things on those traditional metrics, but but what was driving it to do all of those things was a purpose. They really wanted to make the world a better place. And so I picked that up at a young age. And when it was time for my wife and I to get back to our roots, get back to the Northern Rockies, this was out in California after college. Um, that was the biggest challenge. We knew we wanted to get home. We knew we wanted to raise our family in the Northern Rockies. And I knew that the biggest challenge was going to be for me to find that scenario. And it took a couple of years. And like all things in life, probably a majority of just luck, just dumb luck. But I ran into Bill Bryan on a different project that I was working on, and he is the one who promoted the idea that I should take a look at what he's up to at Off the Beaten Path. And that's made all the difference. I mean, that's why I'm here in Bozeman, Montana. And that's why I feel that I've got a real direction in my professional life. And I've been given the opportunity to surround myself at Off the Beaten Path with people who have that shared purpose. And it energizes us every day that we get to do this, that we're in this privileged position to partner with people when they go off in their own individual life and potentially create some of their most impactful and meaningful memories in their life. And that comes with great obligation. So you have to be energetic about it. You have to be very invigorated by that circumstance. And I believe that at the heart of that engine is this purpose that we have to really do something exceptional, to take the heart of a traveler and connect them to the soul of the place and let that be our differentiator. And that's what's got us here, rightly or wrongly. And we've been fortunate to expose ourselves to more people, become more relevant in the world, so that we have more people that are coming to us for that style of travel.
I get excited and fired up when I hear people talk about the purpose
Yep.
because like I said, just more recently getting in that groove. But when I start talking with people, I could tell my tone's raising and
Yep.
I'm just getting more excited. But
Right.
I don't know. You can't replace when you feel the meaning of what you're
Oh
doing.
yeah, absolutely. And you can do it with anything. You really can. And I'm convinced myself that whatever I did professionally, I would dig in deeply to find what is its higher purpose. What is the reason why this is important to the world? You've done it with your company, and I've done it with mine, and it does. It really is the element of difference that inspires effort that is beyond the normal, and you don't even think twice about it because it's really important work.
Yeah, and in my opinion, it's like still ever evolving. Like I
Yeah.
don't know what the next
Yep.
the next chapter will be, but
Yeah.
that's the compass. It's
That's right. That's right. It's interesting because we talk about that a lot in our company, and it may be that we're so directly associated with travel, but it truly is about the journey, not the destination. You're eternally in this mode where you're compelled to think, how can I make this not only better, faster, stronger, but in the case of travel and these moments that people go off to create lifetime memories, how can I make it more meaningful? How can I make it more real? How can I make it more local? How can I make it more unique? And that's in fact what drives us. So it's good. It is eternal. You're constantly thinking about how you're going to evolve, and that keeps it very much alive. There's nothing static about our professional lives, and that's because we are thinking about it in the right ways. It's internally dynamic, and there's opportunity each and every day.
I love it.
Yeah, it's
Can
good.
you share, and you don't have to if you don't
Yeah.
want to, what the company was that you started with that had this sort of?
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, it's certainly a part of my story. So, yeah, I matriculated I followed the track that everyone's supposed to follow. I went off to college and did my best and went from a degree in accounting and finance. I went to what was at the time one of the big six public accounting firms, and that took me out to San Francisco and California. And it became clear to me that that wasn't really my track. Like I wasn't a firm guy. And I also had intentions to get back to the Northern Rockies. So as soon as I got enough hours to qualify and make sure I could get that CPA, behind my name, and at that time, I just launched out. I went into this little tiny company. It was a little juice company called the Juice Club that ultimately evolved into what's called Jamba Juice. They have they were the inventors of the fruit smoothie. And it was really classic because I got involved in that company because it was just about to do this really big thing. It was going to grow. At that time, Starbucks had done its thing where it was now proliferating, and it was at its infancy. This was in the early 90s. Howard Schultz, who's the founder of Starbucks, he actually had invested money in Juice Club, which became Jamba Juice, and intended to put it on that same model. So it was intensely exciting from a professional standpoint. I got to do things in that company because we were growing that exposed me at a young age to all kinds of really cool stuff on the traditional metrics of professional life in finance and accounting and in operations and so on. But what was really classic that I didn't expect, but it impacted me even to this very day, was that the company was driven by the idea that it could inspire people to not select something unhealthy, but rather have something healthy and put that in their body. And again, early 90s, 12 ounces of Valencia orange juice and half a cup of individually quick frozen Watsonville strawberries and some wonderful Michigan blueberries, and you blend it all up and hand it to somebody. You're actually not just giving them a drink, you're actually changing their life. And that was like, I was dyed in the wool. I was hooked. And it was tough to leave that, but I always intended to come back to the Northern Rockies. So that's what I learned. That's what I picked up in that experience. The founder of that company was an amazing guy that was really driven by that idea. And so I kept that with me. And when I came out to Montana, it was like, okay, what am I going to do out here? It's a lot different than San Francisco and in the professional world that I was used to, but it was home and I was totally used to that. So I just had to figure out that professional thing. So I had a real sense that I was maybe asking for more than I could achieve. So I was just myself. It was a blessing that I ran into Bill Bryan and ultimately got involved in Off the Beaten Path.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
I was born in the early 90s, so I can't really like say what the early
I'm
90s
old.
were.
I'm getting old now. I'm officially old around here.
But I don't know. I don't think there's as big of an emphasis on, health, like health food and stuff. So it seems almost ahead of its time being.
Yeah, it was.
90s.
It certainly was at the time. It was, as a result of that, it was branded in a sort of a national sense. It was branded as a California concept because it was focused on health and diet. And yet it resonated mostly because we had a great product and it drove all of us in that particular tribe. It drove all of us, to really get after it. And it was an exciting time for me in my life.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And so you're originally from Wyoming?
Well, I was born in Helena.
Okay.
And lived a few years in Helena and Missoula. And then when I was quite young, I was 10, my father took us back down to where he's from and where my mother's from, which is a little tiny town in north central Wyoming called Buffalo, Wyoming,
Oh, I actually
right on
know
the
it. Yeah,
eastern
yeah.
slope of the Bighorn Range there. And so that's all my formative years were in Buffalo and Wyoming, and had a fifth generation from that county, long history in that county on both sides of the family. And so yeah, I do consider myself a Wyoming boy through and through. But boy, I've now been in Montana longer than I've been in Wyoming, truth be told. I've got some friends that always rib me about being a Wyoming boy, but I was born in Helena. But I'm really honestly Bozeman's home. And frankly, Wyoming and Montana, they share a lot in common, and small towns and agricultural heritage, that's prominent in both places. So it very much feels like home.
Maybe you can answer a question. Me and my fiance were talking about this
Yeah,
morning. What's the term if you're from Wyoming? What do you call it? Because I know Montanan, but what do you
a Wyomingite.
Wyomingite? Okay,
That's
I
how I've heard it, and yeah, it's a tough transition, but it's Wyomingite. Yeah,
okay, yeah. We weren't sure, and we were just recently in Colorado, so we were trying
yeah,
to determine what that is.
yeah.
But,
That's right. Well, it's funny because in Wyoming, of course, the least populated state in the United States. A lot of pride with that in Wyoming as well. But I don't know what they call Coloradans, but we in Wyoming we just call them greenies because they're green license plates. We
mhm,
try to keep it pretty simple.
yeah. Is there anything about growing up in Wyoming that formed who you are?
Oh
Like,
gosh, yeah. I mean, it's sort of the typical experience in really in the American West, but particularly Wyoming and Montana, where small town, the town itself had about 4,000 people, and had on one side of the family is some cattle ranchers, and on the other side of the family, Basque sheep herders, and so had an agricultural base, rural base, a lot of pride. I happened to land in Buffalo, which has just a tremendous amount of pride in its community, and it shows. I mean, it's a little town, but it's a town that has a great focus on family and on children. And so I grew up in a wonderful place at a wonderful time when you could run around and be gone from the home, which your parents typically wanted you out of the house all darn day, and you could just be out and about, and everybody kind of kept an eye on everybody else, and so I think my family itself, very much an entrepreneurial family, hardworking, and those things are just they're almost genetic in me, and that always serves me well. I it puts you in the right mindset when you go off to college. I went to the Midwest to kind of fish out of water. Went to the Midwest to school, and I was so prepared. I was so prepared for academics and interpersonal relationships and being on my own, largely because just a hard worker, just picked that up from my family, and very lucky to have grown up where I grew up.
yeah, I can relate. I grew up on a family dairy farm
Yeah.
in a town of 1,500 people, but
Yeah.
it
There you go.
it gives you a different advantage.
Yeah.
Like there's some
That's right.
disadvantages to the lack of socialization
Yeah.
and
That's right.
exposure, but
Sure. Sure.
the hard work is pretty invaluable.
Yeah, it is. And there's also this sort of built-in commitment to the people around you, because you really do respect and understand that you do depend on each other. And so you flash forward into your professional life, and there's this endemic commitment to people. Like, it's a little bit of a code of the West thing, but your word is your bond, and you are an honest player. And those kinds of things that you pick up in a rural community, that you pick up in on farms and ranches, those things are so applicable to life. And most of us who grew up in that circumstance, regardless of where you go, you keep it, and it's unique. It certainly is.
Yeah, everyone that works, directly with Mountain Mule, they're the team, part of the team, and
Yeah,
that's like it's a bond. Like
yeah,
we're
yeah,
like, and they know like
absolutely.
I got you. Like
Yeah,
it's
you
just,
depend on each other,
yeah,
right?
it's, I don't know, just it feels habitual and
Yep.
ingrained.
We have the same thing. And so you'll end up having longer tenure. People don't leave, they stick around. There's something they get from their work life, that, is answering all those needs that we as humans need. And that's what makes great teams.
Well, I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
If people want to
Appreciate
find
it.
more about the Armory or Off the Beaten Path or you, where
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty straightforward. Off the Beaten Path is, offthebeatenpath.com. You can find us there and understand more about the company. And then with the Armory, it's Armory Hotel BZN. And it flies a flag under the Kimpton brand, which is a part of IHG, very large international company. But that's really just uh, it feeds kind of the ability to do global reservations and so on. But the Armory itself does have that affiliation, so you can also find it if you're searching for Kimpton Armory Hotel.
awesome. I'm going to link everything. I know you're a busy man. I very much appreciate your time coming here.
Very cool. I'm flattered to be asked,
Yeah.
and I really appreciate what you're doing, and cannot wait to be your next big fan with the
Awesome.
podcast.
Yeah. Thanks, Corey. Appreciate you.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks for listening, folks. You can find the full blog post for every episode, along with key takeaways and links at mountain-mule.com. If you haven't yet, consider following the show. That one small action helps these Montana businesses get seen, grow, and thrive, and it helps this podcast keep going too. If you know a business that would be a good fit for the show, we'd love to hear from you. Just reach out through the website or social. Thank you for supporting these Montana businesses. See you on the next show.